Hey, this is Heather from the Renaissance English History Podcast, and this is your Tudor Minute for May the 1st. Today, in 1517, we saw the evil May Day riots. 2 weeks previously, a Dr. Bell preached a sermon against immigrants who were coming to England to take the jobs of native-born Englishmen and encouraged people to attack the foreigners. During the May Day of 1517, apprentices were joined by Thames watermen and city porters, and they ran wild in London, attacking foreigners in their homes and shops. Most of the foreigners were French, but there were also attacks on Jews and Dutch. Thomas More actually was called to calm everything down, and the authorities, and over the next few days, over 300 people were arrested, and a few dozen of the leaders were hung, drawn, and quartered. This is actually also the scene of a recent discovery of a play about Thomas More that Shakespeare helped to write, and there's very famous lines, which I'm going to read because we are still in the midst of the greatest refugee crisis in the world since the Second World War, and sometimes we need some Shakespeare to remind us to practice empathy on those who are displaced and need our help. So he says, when the crowd asks for the foreigners to be removed, he says, "Grant them removed, and grant that this, your noise, hath chid down all the majesty of England. Imagine that you see the wretched strangers, their babies at their backs, and their poor luggage plodding to the ports and the coasts for transportation, and that you sit as kings in your desires, authority quite silent by your brawl, and you in ruff of your opinions clothed. What had you got? I'll tell you, you had taught how insolence and strong hand should prevail, how order should be quelled, and by this pattern none of you should live an aged man, for other ruffians, as their fancies wrought, with self-same hand, self-reasons, and self-right, would shark on you, and men, like ravenous fishes, would feed on one another. Say now the king should so much come too short of your great trespass as but to banish you, whither would you go? What country, by the nature of your error, should give you harbour? Go you to France or Flanders? To any German province? To Spain or Portugal? Nay, anywhere that not adheres to England? Why, you must needs be strangers. Would you be pleased to find a nation of such barbarous temper that, breaking out in hideous violence, would not afford you an abode on earth? Whet their detested knives against your throat? Spurn you like dogs, and like as if that God owed not nor made not you, nor the elements were not all appropriate to your comforts, but chartered unto them, what would you think to be thus used? This is the stranger's case, and this your mountainish inhumanities. That's your Tudor Minute for today. Remember, you can dive deeper into life in 16th century England through the Renaissance English History Podcast at englandcast.com, where we do have an episode on xenophobia in Tudor England. And if you are called to help refugees and strangers today, I urge you to go to helprefugees.org, where you can make a donation to a charity that is working with some of the displaced people in the world today.